And we are live. Thank you very much for everyone tuning in to watch us, and everyone watching us back as recording. We appreciate you as well.
Yes, thank you everyone for joining. Tonight we are joined by Shyla Jump. She is the granddaughter and the person leading the charge of finding her grandmother, Charlotte Heimann, who disappeared October 28th, 1981 from Rochester, New York. Shyla, welcome back to Looking Lost.
Thank you for joining us.
Having me. Yeah, thank you guys.
So, you reached out. You let us know you had a few updates to go over with us and you wanted everyone to know. So, if you don't mind, for the people just watching this for the first time that are not familiar with your grandmother's case, if you could go back over all that with them real quick here. Or not real quick, take your time. We have plenty of time.
Yeah, so my grandmother went missing October 30th in 1981. She was 27 years old. She went missing in Rochester, New York. She originally lived on Alexander Street, but she went missing from Rochester Psych Hospital after she had left. She was there for a few days after a alleged or assumed drug overdose. So she was admitted, and then the day that they gave her a 4-hour pass, she left to go pay her rent. She did verbalize that a man was looking for her, and a man had come to that hospital looking for her that day. So she was released, and she never made it to pay her rent. She never contacted her landlord. She never picked up any of her belongings. Her purse, her wallet, everything was left at her home. She, at the time, had a daughter, my mother, Elisa, who was here in Ohio, with my great-grandmother, Alice, when she went missing. So they searched as much as they could and got to Rochester as much as they could. Unfortunately, she wasn't reported missing until a month after she actually went missing. And unfortunately, the police... it's assumed that they thought that she had moved back to Ohio, which she had not. And they also assumed that she had killed herself, which there's no reason to believe that she had killed herself. So they stopped looking for her, and the case went cold. So the case originally went cold in 1984. I decided about a year ago, in March of 2025, to start looking into the case, to start opening it back up, seeing where the case stood at Rochester Police Department, who is the original police department handling the case, and that took the missing person case. So I reached out to them to make contact. They were hesitant to talk to me at first, and then I explained that I was coming to Rochester, and I wanted a meeting with them because I wanted to discuss what had happened on her case, what can we do moving forward, what evidence do they have, all of the things that I could gain from their investigation to help me find her. They admitted in phone calls, that they did believe that she just moved back to Ohio, like a lot of people had said. So
did they tell you that they spent time actually looking, or they just believed what people told them?
So originally they did go looking. They had an eyewitness report that she was at a mall in Rochester. It's no longer there. And there was a security guard that reported seeing her a month after she had disappeared. Detective Carr had told me that wasn't verified, and that he doesn't believe or have any reason to believe that it was actually her. When talking with the police, they state that they do not take that sighting as her last known sighting. They take the last known sighting as the day that she left Rochester Psych Hospital, which was October 30th.
Now, last time you were on the podcast, I think you told us that the family believed that she actually checked herself in to hide from someone, right?
Yes. So she had explained to our family that she was fearful of a man. That's also one of the reasons she had sent my mother here to Ohio with my great-grandmother. She had told my great-grandmother to keep my mom and don't let anybody take her. and was very serious about that. Charlotte at the time was in college at Monroe Community College, so she wanted to finish out her degree. She knew my mom was safe with my great grandmother, so she sent her to Cincinnati. She would come back and forth to visit as much as she could, but then she just disappeared, out of thin hair. So she did verbalize that fear, and then it was told to me by Rochester Police Department that they did locate the man that came looking for her on that day, October 30th of 1981. They located him in July of 2025 when I started digging more into the case and opening up new avenues, and actually making leads, and connecting the dots. So they interviewed him back in July. He reported, allegedly, he reported that he did go to the psych hospital to find my grandmother, and that at the time in 1981, he was a drug addict and he was looking to bum money off of my grandmother so he could go buy drugs. So the police stated that since he admitted that he was a drug addict and that he has no criminal history since then, that they were not looking for him as a suspect. So the man that came looking for my grandmother at the psych hospital is still unnamed, despite the numerous attempts to name the non-suspect.
So the cops know who he is, but they refuse to tell you.
Absolutely, yes.
This is still an active case. This happened in 1981, and they've done nothing over the last 30 years.
I will be right back.
Oh, yeah. So what got you involved in this? And if you don't mind, talk about your background, like what you're doing for work now.
Yeah, so I went to college, and I went for social work, but I also went for criminal justice. So I have an associate's degree in social services, corrections, and criminal justice. It was a 3-major degree. And then I have a bachelor in criminal justice specifically. I have been working at the same job in the same county for Child Protective Services for 6.5 years now. I love my job. It's very rewarding. My family history has obviously got me in the direction of my job because I want to help save children from neglect and abuse.
Well, I commend you for that. Like, that's something we cover all the time on this podcast is, these kids that have things happen to them, and it seems like no one really cares. So I'm sure that you do a good job at your job, and I commend you for that. Thank you very much for doing it.
Thank you. I'm very passionate, and I'm also passionate about this case. So when I started looking in March, I dove in headfirst. I put in hours after work, at nighttime after my children went to bed. Anytime I could, I would spend time working on this case and gathering all the evidence I could from here in Ohio. And then up in July, that's when I first went to Rochester, New York, for various reasons. One, I wanted to make contact with my grandfather's family now that I had that DNA evidence to prove that the Shannon family is my grandfather's family through the DNA test. So I wanted to make contact to get to know them. They knew I was coming, but I also wanted to ask them questions about Charlotte, if they remembered how she was, because I genuinely just wanted to know how she was as a person, because all I see are these pictures and I don't know her. So I hear all of the things that she was. She was a lively person. She was funny. She was a tomboy. She loved motorcycles. Yeah, she hung out at bars. If anybody's been to Rochester, over there in the Alexander Street area, it's bar central. So it's really hard not to hang out at bars in that area. So yeah, she was a pretty friendly person. So her voicing that she was fearful of somebody was real. And the fact that after she voiced that, she disappeared, and the first avenue that the police suggest is that she killed herself just because she had struggled in the past with mental health. And I want to make it known that I have no proof that she struggled with mental health. I have no record still. I know I said this back in July, when we originally had our first podcast. I still have no records for her because I cannot obtain those until 50 years after somebody dies. And technically,
That's insane.
she's technically not dead. So she's not declared dead, so I cannot access those records. If I declared her dead, I would be able to, but I'm not going to do that. So I've been working around that. In July, we went to the property. So I am working with Peace River Canine Search and Rescue Team from Peace River, Florida. So they've been helping me ever since May of 2025. We've been working, off-site before we went to Rochester, looking at land, looking at soil samples, diving deep into where we actually believed she could be. So in July, we took Canine Dutch, hoping to get on the property. Unfortunately, the first time that we went in July, we were unable to locate or obtain permission from the property owner at that time, because we had believed that the property, if you're looking at the picture, the property to the left of that giant tree is somebody else's property over the creek. So there's a creek hidden back there behind those trees, and that's kind of the property line. So we thought that our access point where it's circled right there was somebody else's property, but it turned out to be Jake Fabry's property, which gave us leverage. At that point,
what?
Sorry.
Just for the listeners that don't know, what brought you to this location?
Okay, and that's a great question for everybody, and everybody asks that question, and it's simple. It's DNA. I mean, the DNA led me to that property because my grandfather's family had owned that property and all of the acreage on that property. My great-grandmother, Dorothy Shannon, owned it since 1935. And it was sold. Her property was sold when she passed away, and I believe that was around 2018, I believe. And her property was sold, and her sons, which my grandfather Raymond and her other son Jimmy, they built the first two houses right there on Janes Road. So they didn't leave the property; they just built their own subdivision. And then all of a sudden, their sister built the third house, and then their other sister built the fourth house, and they all lived there on Janes Road. Although Dorothy's land was no longer their land, they were still on the property. And if you know the area and you go over there, if you look out Raymond's back deck, you can see, like, he can watch that area, and he can see that area. He walks that area daily.
Do you think that they don't know anything, right? That his kids or grandkids, I don't even know which ones you talk about now. It's his kids that still own these properties?
So on Janes Road, Jimmy, who is in his 70s, he owns the first log cabin house, and then Raymond, which this is all public record, by the way. So Raymond owns the second house, which was built around 1981 when Charlotte went missing. The third house and the fourth house was built by their sisters, Janet and Mary. So recently in 2021, Jake Fabry bought that fourth house. So the fourth house no longer belonged to a Shannon family relative, which gave us the inn. So luckily, I didn't have to gain permission from the Shannon family to get on the property. It was no longer theirs. So that gave me the inn to access where we thought she was. And the simple answer is I picked that area because it's a family compound. They never left. They were born there, raised there. I mean, Raymond lived in his mom's home until he was like 20 something. So like he has never left that corner of property in his entire 72-ish years of life.
Do you think that maybe he told them, don't ever let this property leave the family type of thing?
So through the grapevine, when I was talking to Sarah Shannon back in April, May, she had explained to me that after Dorothy had passed away, that all the siblings got together, which there's 5 boys and 2 girls. So all the siblings had got together and wanted to sell Dorothy's land. Well, I was told that everybody wanted to sell except for Joseph Shannon. Unfortunately, before all of that went down, Joseph had a heart attack in Jimmy's home and passed away. And then they sold Dorothy's home.
Was Joseph the oldest?
Joseph is not the oldest. The oldest is Jimmy.
Okay. I'm just wondering why he would.
And the youngest would be my grandfather, Raymond.
Gotcha. All right. So you gained access to this property. What did you guys do? Like, how did you select this location as far as like that tree and all that?
Yeah. So on July 7th, when we went originally, we used the physioelectric device. And I know that's a big word. And I don't want to use the word gizmo because that like downplays the science of it. And science is honestly really cool. So the physioelectric device picks up magnetic frequencies. As best as I can explain this, I'm not a scientist. Remember that. So it picks up magnetic frequencies of your bones. So although you don't know it, your body does have a magnetic frequency. Everybody has a frequency. So this device they put Caucasian bone in it and they put our family's DNA in it. Using that, it then pinpoints where the DNA is hitting, which is really cool. And it sounds like mysterious and bizarre. But it really works. So we started from one point off of the property because at that point we didn't have permission. So he hit on that point and it was pointing at the house, the 4th house, which is Jake's house, which makes sense because that's, the property. So it was pointing there and then he walked up more, it hit again in the field. And then he drove up. And when I say it was Michael from Peace River K9 Search and Rescue Team. He drove up and he hit another location. So it's creating this triangulation using each pinpoint of where the device is hitting. Mm-hmm. So after that all was on James Road. After that, we went back to Long Pond Road and he got the last triangulation at the top, and then using all of those, it created that triangle. It is so eerie and so crazy that where that dog is standing is literally the triangle. Like exactly, that dog is in the middle of that triangle, and that is where the dog hit. So at first you can say it's voodoo science or whatever, but then you back it up with evidence that isn't voodoo science. That's a certified canine.
We know dogs can find human remains. So,
So when we went out the second time in July, we were able. So the picture you're looking at right now is after the land was cleared. Before in July. We went out with K9 Dutch with permission to gain access to the property. Again, we had that triangulation, so we know we were going to that area right there. And all of that was covered in heavy vegetation. There was it was up to I would say our knees, and thorns and vines. Right where Dutch is sitting or standing is like where his legs were getting stuck in all of the vines. And then there's a tree back next to where Michael's standing to the left of Michael, all vines, like thick vines. So it had been overgrown. Well, K9 Dutch went into all of that and he could only offer a partial sit. And of course, a partial sit's an issue. It's not a full sit, right? So, but it also excited me because it wasn't nothing. Like he offered a partial sit.
He didn't have room to operate back there probably, right?
And that's exactly what Michael stated. So, Michael wrote that in his report that it warranted further investigation and that with the triangulation, and they also use what's called divining rods. Some people call them dowsing rods. They're not dowsing rods, but they're like they're rods that point to magnetic frequency. So that rod also pointed right there. So we had that, we had the physioelectrical device, and then we had a partial sit from the dog. All of that came on July 13th. So July 13th, we, gave all of that information back to the police because I was informing the police on every step of this. I was inviting them, honestly, to help me or come along with on every step of the process.
That's awesome.
But so that land was cleared in about September. So we went back out. We had to wait until October to go back out. So that picture right there is the day of the dig.
I do have a comment I want to say. This is on our Facebook page, but from Mercedes Star, Dad would be so excited for everything you're doing to find his big sister, Charlotte. Thank you, Shyla, for all this hard work and for not giving up like it seems everyone else did.
That would be my cousin, Brandy. Thank you. So her dad was Charlotte's brother, Neil. Charlotte really was like a motherly figure to Neil as well as her brother, Richard. So it really hurt the family to lose her and lose their big sister because she was the oldest. That picture right there is the beginning of the dig. Obviously, we hadn't gotten too far down. So after we got the canine to hit, we went and picked up the excavator. Unfortunately, you can see that that excavator does have a claw, and it's also very tiny. That is all that I was able to rent that day that was available. So I had to work with what I had. So we got out there, we gridded off the area, and we started digging gently, slowly, layer at a time, and we would stop throughout the process. And when we got about 3.5 feet down is when we started pulling out the bone ash, and when we started pulling out the adipocere. I always say it wrong. Adipocere, which is like the grave like wax substance. And in that second picture where you see all the buckets, that was our sifting area. So instead of in some crime scenes and some digs, people will be closer to the dig area and they'll sift as they go like that. We were having our forensic anthropologist, Dr. Voss, who is a great person. He would examine what we were pulling out as he was pulling out things of the soil too. He would look at our hands and he'd say, okay, go put it in the bucket. So then at the end, he and Michael and throughout the time, they would go and sift and take the samples. And Canine Dutch there, such a great boy. Canine Dutch would go over to those samples and he would hit, which means he was hitting on remains. Okay.
Right.
It's to the left of that excavator in that picture, as all of the dirt was piling on top of that area right there. They had Canine Dutch going to where Dr. Voss is standing, and he was still hitting. He was fully sitting on a dirt pile. So I mean, it just kept happening.
And you mentioned something in passing. I don't think everyone caught that, but you called it graveyard wax. Is it
grave-like wax? So it's adipocere.
Right.
Yeah.
So what is that?
It's a fatty-like substance. So like when you decompose, when you end up eventually turning into mush, because you know the saying ashes to ashes, dust to dust, we actually really do to like deteriorate back into dust. So the body decomposes in certain areas or like environments. It can create that squishy grave-like substance that this is weird for me to resemble it, but in the dirt, to me, it looked like mini marshmallows stuck in the dirt. And when you broke it up, Dr. Voss would, like when you broke up the clumps, because your body, like it clumps the soil together. It also discolors the soil. So as you're going down with the excavator, we would stop and we would observe the soil discoloration, which meant there's a disturbance, and which meant there was something there. I do want to back up a little bit. Before we dug, we did that ground penetrating radar. And that shows, when they're going over the area, that shows disturbances in the land and how far down they were. And they got positive disturbance 4 to 7 feet down. And that was after the dog hit. So that's where we knew to start digging there, is because that is where the disturbance in the soil showed on the ground penetrating radar. And we then visually saw it. So as we got down, we could see the discoloration in the soil. And then that's when we were finding the adipocere over to, I'm like pointing, over to the left of, when you're looking at the photo of the excavator, to the left of that is where all the adipocere was coming out, and all of the activity, as well as the titanium, was all hitting in that area.
Wow. I do have a comment here from Jess. I think this is absolutely wonderful what you're doing. Keep going and never let anyone stop you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I also put in the comment section a link to your Facebook page.
Yes.
It's called Charlotte Heimann Missing 1981. So there's a link there. So if anyone wants to join that Facebook page, keep up with what you're doing.
Yeah, so I update that Facebook page as much as I can. I've been putting some of the TikTok videos over on that page because I know that some of the followers on Facebook do not have TikTok, and they do want to see, the videos and evidence. That whole day, between my sister and I, and our cameras, I had a GoPro and she had a body camera on. So we each captured 5 hours of video footage. So when we got back from that dig and all of this information is being absorbed, people were wanting answers, and they were wanting videos and all of the updates. We had to go through all of these videos because, 5 hours of footage, nobody's going to read into. So that picture right there was actually from one of the videos.
Yeah, and on your page, like you just mentioned, you have all these different little video snippets of things. So I do suggest you guys follow the page. Along with, I was going to try to find it. I'm having a hard time finding it now, but some of the audio that when you're speaking to the detectives, they basically are trying to blow you off, right? But you're not going to let them do that, are you?
No, so there's one thing about me. I might be small. They say small but mighty. That's very factual about me. I have what they call like some fire in my soul. I don't tend to back down from a challenge. I'm very persistent, and I'm very passionate about justice. I mean, my work shows, the passion of justice I have. And it just makes me want to fight harder, because the big thing about this case that makes me really sad is her case was dismissed because she had alleged mental health. And we need to make this very known that the stigma of people in mental health, they automatically said, oh, because she has mental health and she was in the psych hospital, she killed herself. That doesn't automatically mean, and they said, oh, she feared a man, she was paranoid. And then they got farther into it and they said, during our interviews back in the 80s, all of her friends and all of her acquaintances and everybody at the bar was reporting that she always thought somebody was after her and she was paranoid. So all of that fed into the police's, I guess, their picture that they wanted to paint of Charlotte just going to kill herself.
And their dismissal.
And something big to share is I'm not an expert, but I will say, so my father killed himself when I was 14. And then my mother-in-law also killed herself when I was 22. So, and I was already with my husband at that time. So it's been really hard on the family, and it makes me, I'm going to actually say, pissed off when they're using that as Charlotte just killed herself. They don't have a body. Where's the body after, 44 years? Where's the proof that she had actually killed herself? There's nothing. But what proof do we have is that hole and the evidence that came out of the hole. And right now, did we have enough DNA to pull out of the adipocere and the bone ash No, we didn't at that point. But that doesn't mean we still can't get that. It is still there. If anybody's listening that's involved, I don't, and to this case, I don't suggest you go there and try to mess with the scene. I advise against that. Please don't touch the scene. But it warrants another dig. So there's still evidence in that hole that could possibly lead. And I mean, if it's not Charlotte, because again, we don't have the DNA evidence that says it's Charlotte, but we have the proof of the chemicals and the decomp of a body and the bone ash that shouldn't be buried there.
Were they able to say if it was human remains?
So they couldn't say it was human, but what they could say it was Caucasian. And I know that's confusing. I know that's so confusing. So in the physioelectrical device, when I went going back and I was talking about putting bones in it. So I know this is also some people think about this. If you're African American, if you're Caucasian, if you're Native American, you have different bone density and you have different magnetic frequencies coming off of your bones. So when they use the physioelectrical device, they use different bones. They brought bones with them, like just plain old Caucasian bone. If that device reacted, it reacted. If the device didn't react, it didn't react. So it did not react to any other ethnicity except for Caucasian bone. And I don't know if somebody can prove to me that a zebra or a horse or a cow or a dog is Caucasian bone. Otherwise, I'm going to tell you there's a Caucasian bone body in that hole.
What does the Shannon family say? They must be aware of what you're doing over there. Did they ever come over? Did they ever offer assistance?
So on July 6th, I actually went to Jimmy and Raymond's home. I approached Jimmy's house first. He opened the door and invited me in without even asking who I was, which gave me a red flag because, I mean, you don't just invite.
You knew who you were.
Yeah, but in the end, I think that he saw Charlotte in me because a lot of people think that I do resemble Charlotte a little bit. So I think that he saw that and was like, whoa. But it was scary. So I didn't go in his house, but I started to question him. And I was like, do you know who I am? He said, no. And I was like, I think you're my grandfather. And his exact words were, well, I'm not. And I said, would you be willing to take a DNA test? Because at this point, like, I think it's funny. So I was like, will you take a DNA test? And he said, no. And then I said, well, you know why I'm here. And I'm working on Charlotte's case. And I want you to prove to me that you're not my grandfather. Because at that point, I didn't have it down to just Ray. Jimmy was still an option. And they both lived there right next to each other. So he declined the DNA test. And then after I told him it would make him look suspicious, he said he didn't give a fuck and then told me that he had an appointment and to move along. And he actually used the gesture, move along now. And I was like, okay. So I didn't get back in my friend's car who was with me. She obviously drove next door to the other driveway. I walked across the yard to Ray's house. I knocked on his door. Ray didn't come to the door, but his adult daughter, I guess, was in the room next to the front door. So she yelled out the window and was like, who is it? And I was like, Shyla. And before I could even say my last name, she started cursing at me, lots of curse words, and was like, oh, F no, you're trespassing. Get the hell out of here. We're calling the police. So I stood there and I was like, are you going to come to the door? She's saying this to me through a window. And I was like, can you come to the door? So then I did make a stupid remark. And I said, because I assume, in my opinion, is that her father murdered my grandmother. Again, an opinion of mine, not proven in a court of law. So I was like, why? Because I think that you killed, or your dad killed my grandfather or grandmother. And she was like, are you kidding me? And she was on the phone with somebody else. And she was like, did you hear that? And then she told me that she was calling the cops. So I said, well, I'll wait. I will wait here for the police to arrive because there's nothing that I'm doing wrong. I just want to speak with him. Also, she doesn't own the home. Ray owns the home, and he never came to the door. He never told me I was trespassing and never told me to leave. So she can't really tell me that she doesn't reside there. So I ended up leaving because I didn't want to piss her off anymore, because I actually was fearful that I was going to get attacked. I'm going to say it. She came around the corner in a bath towel, and only a bath towel. And she came around so fast at the front door that I really thought she was coming out the front door at me. So I just decided to leave. And then I get a phone call from Detective Mark Mariano, who I was working with, the retired detective from Rochester. And he said that Greece police got a phone call and the Shannon family wanted a warrant out for my arrest. And I asked them why. And he said for harassment. And then I was like, okay, well, like I want to go back to Ohio. So am I being arrested? And Mark laughed and he was like, no, we know you're not harassing them. It's fine. So I was like, fine, I'm done with them. Like I made all of the connections I could. I had reached out to them as much as I could, let them know when I was coming. And after that whole incident, I invited them all to meet us at dinner. Obviously, nobody showed. That's fine. But I gave them so many opportunities to clear their name, to explain what happened, with my grandmother, and how she was involved in their lives. So I left it at that. And since then, of course, they're angry. I would be angry too. I'm alleging, or I'm assuming, and I have an opinion that their father, murdered my grandmother. And I know I would be angry too. But I would also just personally, I would want to clear my dad's name. I would want to prove that the person that is claiming all of this was false.
Right.
So it surprises me. I have reached out to a couple of the family members that have talked to me. Recently, I made a big connection with somebody that was very close to the family, which is great. I'm hoping that gets some progress. But overall, they are upset. The day of the dig, Raymond did come out of his house multiple times. He walked his dog straight down the sidewalk towards where we were digging, and then he stood at the telephone pole and watched. He watched us dig 3 separate times, and I have it on video. And this man could have walked the opposite way out of his house. He didn't have to walk towards where we were digging, but he chose to because he wanted to watch, and that's gross. After the 3rd time of him doing that, I was at the driveway of the 4th house. I was just like, looking good, Grandpa. And I did say that to him because I was mad. I was pissed off. So I yelled, looking good, Grandpa. And then I screamed, justice for Charlotte. And then I shut up. But then I videotaped him because he was on a public sidewalk. He went straight to his neighbor's house to get his old lady neighbor involved. And I have a video of her coming out of her house, like, what's going on? And then you could see him saying, that girl over there thinks I'm a murderer. And the old lady goes, how dare she? Oh my gosh. It's very great video. So he was just trying to clear his name. And you're doing a really great job at, hiding yourself or making yourself known. So they are aware of it. And since July, back in October, after the dig and everything happened with the dig, the police did interview him. I completely don't agree with the interview. Of course, he and I've learned this about Raymond, that he is very controlling and manipulative, and he likes to make himself look like a good old boy. And so that's what he did with the police. He let them in his house. He said, no, I don't want an attorney, and talked about how he used to work in bars in the 80s, and he's not declining that he is my grandfather. He could be my grandfather, and that he took home a lot of women in the 80s, and most of them he didn't know their names. So he could be my grandfather from that. And he claimed he didn't remember Charlotte, didn't remember her picture, but the physioelectrical device showed our family's DNA at that spot on that land. There's no reason for my grandmother Charlotte's family DNA to be in the ground on that land.
Exactly. So I've read, I think before, that Charlotte may have been pregnant at the time of her disappearance as well.
There was speculation. The internet likes to say lots of things.
Okay.
So I'm not sure where that report came about. It was on like a couple missing websites. I did read that, but there's no proof of that. Obviously, I don't have any medical documentations, but the police confirmed that they had no knowledge of that. So I'm not sure if she actually was pregnant at that time. Through DNA, we have not found anybody, from her DNA that would show that she had another child.
Okay. So if people watching want to continue following your story, where would they go?
I would start with the TikTok. I've been putting videos out, a lot of good information. There are recorded phone calls, which you mentioned, Travis, some good phone calls. So you can listen to those phone calls. You can see the triangulations on there, the videos of the dig, how I got from March until now, all of the evidence. I have all of the binder still and all of the books that I created, but I've eventually made all of that on the internet as much as I could, so that I can get the awareness to keep spreading. I want her story to keep going. Yeah.
I mean, you're putting in a lot of work, and actually this still shot here, you have a funny video. It says, this like what is that song? Something about work. You gotta work.
Yeah, it was like a soldier song, like a boot camp song. And surprisingly, I did not expect that video, which is like a 9-second video, to go that big. And when I say that, to me, TikTok, it says 588,000 views. And yeah, it says 18K likes. I would never in a million years think that I would ever get that on anything on social media. So I'm just happy that many people viewed the video, and it makes me happy when I can see more views on all of her videos, because it means the word's getting out there.
All right,
yeah.
people are paying
Here's
attention
the video.
to it.
I'll
Oh, you're gonna embarrass me. Oh, okay.
Not another day's of work. Hard work. That's what they say. Hard work. Hard work. Not another day's of work. Hard work.
So how far did you end up going? Because you said it was between 4 and 7 feet deep. Did you guys get all the way down to 7 feet deep?
That excavator would have fallen in, and I would have been like trapped by the dirt. It eventually would have collapsed on me. So unfortunately, that excavator would only get down like 3.5 feet. So that's why I said that another dig is warranted, because we did get to 3.5 feet, and that's when we were hitting and getting all of the positive, bone ash and the adipocere. So it started there. It needed to go further.
And the police wouldn't help you dig deeper?
So on the day of the dig, when we got to the property with the excavator, I called Rochester Police Department and Greece Police Department, and I invited them. I said, hey, we're going to be here all day. If you would like to come advise us if we're doing anything wrong, join us. Obviously, I would like their expertise to ensure that everything goes smoothly. Nobody showed up, and we were out there for 5 hours.
I'm sure they said, well, if you find anything, get a hold of us.
Right.
That's exactly their quote. That was their quote. Yeah.
What was your TikTok page name?
It is Justice for Charlotte Heimann.
Is it like the number 4?
Yes. And then Charlotte Heimann is one word. And a lot of the videos are me talking about the case. So things that I didn't talk about here, you can learn about on the videos, because I was new to TikTok when I was starting the videos. I've never had, a TikTok before, so I didn't really know how to make videos. You'll see that. But there's a lot of me talking and explaining the process since March. And I kind of went in a timeline where it goes, from March until now.
And Mercedes says, I don't think the pregnancy thing was true. Never heard that before. I'm pretty sure. All right, Shyla, is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
I just want everybody to keep advocating for Charlotte's case, advocating for the police to keep going, and to make some progress. And I'm hopeful with the new updates, and things are still coming in as of this year. I'm hopeful that we can make more progress once spring hits.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Well, definitely keep us in mind if something does come up and you want us to share, or if you want to come back on and let us know if you found her. It sounds like you're doing a lot of work and doing great work. So keep up the good fight.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight and watching. And please go ahead and follow the TikTok page and the Facebook page as well. Thank you, Shyla.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye.
For 5-year-old Taylor Williams led investigators to Alabama this week.
So we have some breaking news from Florida. An arrest has been made in
Tonight,
connection.
after years of agony, a glimmer of hope for the family.
Investigators spent hours searching through this house off Pennsylvania Avenue.
What could be a major development in the search for missing Alabama teenager.
Tonight, a stunning twist in the search for Taylor.
Somebody out there knows something.
They want to lay him to rest their way, not by somebody else's way.